So I went to the link that was in the last video, PowerShell GitHub and PowerShell releases. And we can see here, this is the page where all of the tagged releases are available. I'm going to switch over to the tags view here, which summarizes it. We can see that we can download 6.24, 7.0, and the 7.1 release is actually in preview mode. If you wanted to download the 7.1 release, I'm sure there's something wrong with it, or go to the last stable release, which is 7.0. 7.0 says latest release. I'm going to install 7.0. So I scroll down a little bit. The download section is below here, and we can see that GitHub is providing 32 copies of PowerShell for different operating systems. You can see even the source code is available if that's the route you want to go. So we've got Ubuntu and Debian. We've got OS X versions, PKG file. The one that I want is the 7.0 for Windows. Now you can get the zip file, or there's the MSI file, which is an installer. I'm going to do the x64 version. This is 64-bit. The x86 version is a 32-bit. It's going to be totally up to you, whatever's right for your operating system. For me, on Windows 10, the Win64 version, MSI. I'm going to prefer the MSI because it's an installer as opposed to just having the zip files to copy myself. So I downloaded it. I'm going to click on it in my browser to run, and we can see that the PowerShell 7 setup wizard is awake. I can choose where it gets installed. For me, I'm going to put this on my D drive. Now, we do need to, well, I'll show you that in a second. It's going to ask me to add the PowerShell to the path environment variable. This is important because you do not necessarily have to navigate to the D drive, Powergram files, PowerShell in order to find the executable. I'm going to leave the defaults here. I'm not going to enable PowerShell remoting. I'm not going to enable context menus. And it's going to ask for admin access to do the installation. So I say yes, and it does the installation. It is fairly quick. Now, I could choose to launch PowerShell right off the installer here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to say finish because I do want to show you, well, first of all, we do want to launch it in admin mode. So I'm going to open up the Windows interface here, and I'm going to start typing PowerShell, and I can see that there is an app that I believe this is the old one. If I was to run this, it would be PowerShell 6 or 5. PowerShell 7, we can see, is installed itself. It's got a different logo. It says PowerShell 7. Now, this is not run under admin mode. We can tell it's not admin mode because it doesn't say administrator in the title. So I'm going to do this again. And this time when I type it, it knows that I like it. And run as administrator is highlighted. So this is what we want to do, is run as administrator. Now, forgive me, I'm going to have to increase the font size here. Try that. I guess that's a bit better. Hopefully you can see it. So this is PowerShell. So if I type PS version table, and then I look for, there's a PS version property, I can see that it's got 7.0.0 installed. So pstable.ps version with the $sign is the command to see what version you have running. I would definitely do that before we're continuing. Now, if we were to try to do anything with Azure at this point, we would get a lot of failures. Like we could run get AZ-VM, and it shouldn't work because we're not yet connected to Azure. What we need to use is the connect AZ account command, and I'm going to call connect AZ account, and I'm going to do this environment variable and say I want to connect to the Azure cloud. You don't have to do this, but there's the Azure cloud, the government cloud, China cloud, the German cloud. This is the Azure public cloud, and it's going to ask me to go to a URL using my browser. So I'm going to bring in a browser window, and it's going to pop up a little question here looking for the code. I'm going to copy. What you do in PowerShell to copy is you drag your mouse across it and hit enter, and I'm going to paste the code into the window. It's going to tell me which account do I want to use. I want to use my training account here. So this is the correct one. Now, since I'm already signed in another window to the portal, I don't have to provide my password, and I can close this window, and I can see that I've got my pay-as-you-go subscription in the Azure cloud environment. So I'm going to clear this screen. And now if I said get AZ-VM, it should bring back to me a list of the virtual machines that I have running. As you can see, there are two. They're in a stop state, but they're reserved. So I have two virtual machines, Azure New VM and Azure New VM 2 on my account. And so we know that we were able to download PowerShell 7, install the Azure, the AZ module, log into Azure using the connect AZ account command, and we have successfully connected into Azure. I can start a VM, stop a VM, do all sorts of management activities within PowerShell right off my desktop.